In this concept video, we're going to discuss 3 keys to solving your hook. So I like to start with the big picture of what's happening with a hook. So with a hook, you are struggling with a club face that is overly close to the path. So curve is created when there is a difference between the face angle and the path of the club. So if I had this little alignment tool helping us see where the club is pointing, if the club was traveling along this red stick, then the face and the path would be pretty much lined up. You can see from this down the line, and there'd be very little curve. If the club face is pointing to the left of the path, then it's going to hook or draw, depending on how much. And if it's pointing to the right of the path, then that would slice or fade, depending on how much. So if you're struggling with a hook, then it means that the club face is pointing well to the left of the path like this. Now there's 2 different scenarios. You could either hit a ball that starts a little left and then curves. That would be hit from a scenario kind of like this. Or you can have a ball that starts pretty straight, where the club face is pointing pretty straight, but the path is way into out, and so it's creating a lot of curve. That's more of your duck hook that looks like it starts straight or maybe even left, but there's a big amount of curve. In general, the larger the amount of curve, the bigger the difference in the face to path. Now, the one issue is if the hook is only with your longer clubs, like your curved clubs, like your driver or your hybrids, then you also have to look at contact location being too much on the toe. But for the sake of this video, let's just look at face alignment to path. We've got a few keys to help us get the face matched up closer to the path. I like to see plus or minus about 1.5 degrees, maybe up to 2 for kind of a scratch golfer. But if you have a big amount of curve, then oftentimes you're in the 5, 6, maybe even up to 8 degrees closed. So how are we going to solve this? Well, the main thing that is going to cause that club face to get closed is going to be a combination of either twisting the club or moving the handle backward, or kind of an early release like this. So 2 of the big causes would be more of an early extension, because now I'm further away from the golf ball and I have to straighten my arms, and as I'm straightening my arms, the club is swinging out to the right, typically, kind of like this, but the club face is pointing way to the left. So one of the drills that we're going to do, the first drill that we're going to do, is to basically control the distance I am from the golf ball. I want to make sure that I'm not increasing the distance or standing up. So I'm going to do the merry-go-round drill, where I'm going to place the club across my shoulders like this, and then without changing my height, I'm going to rotate my body so that my belly button and hips are pointing out there, and my shoulders are pretty close to square. But most importantly for this version is I want to make sure that I didn't stand up, that my right shoulder didn't get high and my body didn't move away from the golf ball. So I'm just practicing going from setup position with the club across my shoulders, and now I'm going into impact. I would then recommend doing that in kind of a 9-to-3 version, or possibly getting into full swings, but monitoring from the down the line camera how much my body is standing up. So that's option 1, is fix your early extension. That could be a big cause of the hook. Number 2 could be a flip, which would be if I'm down towards the bottom of the swing. We'll put that back on eventually. So if I'm down towards the bottom of the swing and the shaft is fairly vertical, even if my body's ahead kind of like this, then as the club is closing, it's typically twisting fast, and you can see how this would be pointing way to the left. So if I have this feeling of really releasing that right side, that right arm, then that will have impact. Typically that will cause a little bit more of the pull draw, but it can cause a big draw, especially if it's combined with that first problem. So if I'm doing more of this flip, but then my body is getting it to start into out, oftentimes we'll hit chunky fat hooks, because this combination is going to move the low point back and move the pathway into out and allow me to close the face. Now sometimes the swing looks pretty good and you're just having a real problem with an overdraw or a large amount of curve. So then we're going to just double check the club face, because the path probably isn't that bad. And we're going to double check the club face and your grip, not at setup, but at last parallel. For this last drill, we're going to check the club face here at last parallel. What we want to see is, now we'll put the club face tool back on. When we get to this last parallel, we want to see the line of the club, or roughly the club face angle, pointing fairly close to where the V on the right hand is pointing. So if I was to get into this golf posture, or if I was to take my grip and get into this last parallel and then place this alignment stick here, you could see that it's pretty much pointing in the same direction as the club face. If the club face is pointing well to the right, or well closed compared to this angle, then I'm typically going to have that extreme face to close, or closed face to path, unless I get a lot of body rotation. So that's where one of these, you have to check your matchups, where if that club face is in a really strong or turned down position, I'm going to have to get my my body a little bit more turned. So we got three big concepts there. We've got early extension and the pivot, we've got the early release or the scoop, and then we've got the club face at last parallel. So with the early extension, we already did the merry-go-round. Let's do one for the flip or the early release. One of the old classic drills is just putting a stick or a swing extender and gripping it at the bottom of the club, just like this. So this will force me to get my hands slightly ahead. If I don't, then if I were to flip, I would hit myself in the side. There's a couple different ways that I would kind of break this down. If you work on it for 10 or 15 minutes and you're still hitting yourself in your side, then I would probably check what you're doing with your release, and I would double check to make sure that your body isn't getting too far away, so then you're having to flip in order to actually get the club down to the golf ball. So this one's fairly straightforward and really hard to mess up. Basically, if I grip it with the stick extending out of the club, if I'm able to hit it and the stick doesn't hit me until I get closer past impact, then it means that I'm not flipping. If, on the other hand, if I was to get here and flip the arms kind of like this, I felt that this hit me at or just before impact, where when I did the good one, it felt like I got to about here when the stick actually hit me. So if you're really good at it and you have good amount of body rotation, you can actually hit some shots where the stick didn't hit me at all. So that's one way to help dial in your release and make sure that it's not too flippy. You can complement that with the motorcycle drill, or with the merry-go-round drill, to get your body in a good position. So if that's cleaning it up and everything's looking good from the down the line camera angle, then the last thing you would have to check would be that club face. And really that one is a visual check using the down the line camera. And then one way that I like to fix it is, let's say I'm making my swings and I keep getting into this position where the club face is overly closed like that from the down the line camera angle. What I would do is I would get here and then I would turn it with the left hand and then put my hands back on and then bring my grip back to setup, and I would feel that my hands are a little bit more on top of the club. That would be a more neutral grip or a weaker grip than what you currently have, and that'll help get the club face matching the path a little bit easier. So these are three really important keys if you're struggling with hooking. I can almost guarantee that one of these is prevalent in your swing and the main reason that you're struggling with this overly closed face to path relationship. So if you like this video, then click on the link in the description below for more drill videos to help improve your golf game.